Well, Representative Roger Goodman has introduced a new law into the Washington State Legislature that effectively requires a drunk driver to pay the child support of any person that driver kills as a result of a drunk driving collision or accident. Well, the law sounds good in theory, but practically speaking, it's unlikely to have any effect, whether it's acting as a deterrent or imposing any financial obligations, additional financial obligations against the drunk driver. The primary reason is because Washington state law already allows a surviving family to recover damages against the drunk driver, and one of those elements of damages would be the financial support that the deceased was expected to pay for his or her children until their 18th birthday. So under Washington wrongful death law, a surviving family can already recover child support from the drunk driver. Another problem with the law is enforcement. So right now, if you made this law as part of an ordinary sentencing grid against the drunk driver when that person is sentenced to be incarcerated, what happens when the child support isn't paid? The prosecuting attorney's office is probably unlikely to take on that action of having to go after the drunk driver financially after the drunk driver is released from prison to pay child support. Prosecutors' offices right now are understaffed and overworked, and they're going to devote most of their attention to the more serious crimes. And so that means a surviving family has to hire a private attorney to basically file a child support collection action against the drunk driver. And hiring an attorney is very expensive. And a child support collection action can take months, if not several months. Then the question is, what assets does the drunk driver have? Even if the drunk driver owns his or her own home or has a job, it can still be very difficult to collect additional money from that defendant because one, the drunk driver can always declare bankruptcy, and two, there is a significant cost and time delay that goes into any collection effort that a collection agency or even an attorney institutes. So those are probably the two biggest enforcement. Well, right now the law in Washington is that a driver has to carry minimum insurance, and that minimum level is only $25,000. In the cases that we see, wrongful death actions against drunk drivers, probably 70 to 80% don't have enough insurance to pay all of the damages that the survivors are entitled to under the law, and that would include child support for any minors. And so without a guaranteed source of recovery like a policy, insurance policy, most attorneys are not going to accept that case and try to collect additional sums, including child support, against that defendant driver, drunk driver's personal assets, because it's just too expensive and too time consuming and too risky. Because there's a lot of things that the drunk driver debtor can do to hide assets or make it very difficult and expensive to collect on those assets. Well, you have to ask yourself why the law is being even proposed in the first place. And from my understanding, the legislature has been very reluctant to increase the jail time penalties for drunk drivers that kill people. And the reason for that is increased jail time costs a lot of money to the state of Washington. It costs an awful lot of money to incarcerate someone. So the state legislature has been very reluctant to simply up the jail time. The child support law that's being proposed now was a way to not have to impose jail time, but to increase the financial obligations or penalties that a drunk driver might have to pay if he or she kills someone. But what happens if the drunk driver doesn't pay child support? What happens if there are collection problems? What happens if the drunk driver has no assets to pay child support? Then the only thing that would be left under the law would be to ask a judge to jail that debtor. So actually we're back to square one when why not just increase the jail time penalties in the first place, because most of the time drunk drivers are going to probably be financially incapable of paying a large child support judgment.